record right now. So this webinar will be recorded and we can send it out to all of our teams after it's over. And what we'll start with now is just some introductions. So we'll go to each of our panelists. You can tell us your name, your current job, so what you do now, and then your role at BVU, what team do you coach, and then last but not least, where you played college soccer, and maybe a fun fact about yourself. Before we jump into those introductions, I want to tell all of you attending right now, the plan for this is to last about an hour, so we'll go until about 7 o'clock. And this is to serve you. So we've got a list of questions that we brainstormed would be helpful to touch on. But if you have questions, we really want to go over your specific questions. So please, throughout this webinar, type your questions into the chat, and we will pivot right away to your questions from your home. Thank you so much for being here, and let's jump into those introductions. Emily, will you go first?
Yep. My name is Emily Skokeseth. Let's see, I already forget what I'm supposed to say.
I'm going to type them into the chat right now.
I went to Gustavus Adolphus College. I now am working for Marsh McLennan Agency, which is an insurance brokerage firm. A fun fact about me is I just bought a townhome. So I'm about a week and a half now living here. Oh, and I coach U9s with Jamie McIntosh.
Awesome, thank you. Abby, will you go next?
Yep. Hi, my name is Abby Kangas. I coach the U18-19 Cities girls team for BVU. I currently work at 3M as an account manager. I've been there for about a little less than 4 years. It'll be 4 years in August. I played soccer at Augsburg. I was a transfer in from UMD. So I played there for 3 years, sophomore through senior year. Fun fact about me, I like the color neon.
Thank you, Abby. All right, Taylor, will you share next?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Taylor Greathouse. I coach the GU17 regional girls team at BVU and GU15 national girls team at BVU. My full-time job is coaching. I'm a graduate assistant coach at Augsburg University right now. What else? Fun fact about me and where I played. I played at St. Catherine University in St. Paul. They're also on my ACT team. And a fun fact about me is I have a cat.
Thank you, Taylor. All right, Marta, will you intro yourself next?
Yeah, my name is Marta Anderson. I played at Augsburg, so I was a few years after Abby, so I never got to play with Abby, but I played with Ashley for a year. I work at Lifetime Corporate right now, and I work in marketing, so marketing analyst. I coach the U11 girls this year. And fun fact, I have a little beagle dog named Jack, and then I also got to study abroad in Barcelona.
Woohoo!
Super cool. Ashley, will you go next?
Hi, I'm Ashley St. Aubin. I work at Sylvan Tutoring right now, and I'm about to start a job as a quality assurance analyst. And I coach the U16 regional girls and the U17 state girls. I played at Augsburg, and I really like professional wrestling.
I did not even know that about you, Ash. That's great.
Drinking all of a cup.
It is all over her social media.
It really is.
More than soccer.
All right, Callie, will you go last with your introduction?
Yes, I'm Callie. Outside of BVU, I nanny, but I'm not doing that right now because everyone's home. But I coach the U16 cities, and then I assistant coach Taylor's team for U17s. And I go to Augsburg University. I'm a junior, so I still have a year left. I'm going to school for elementary education. And a fun fact about me, I'm learning to play the ukulele during quarantine.
That's amazing.
Way to put this time to good use, Kelly. So as you can see, sort of a wealth of knowledge here and a lot of knowledge of the local schools and the local college soccer scene. So I'm really excited to jump into these questions. The plan here is I'm going to ask 2 to 3 panelists specifically to answer a question and then open it up to everybody if other panelists have things they want to add. And like I said, please add questions into the chat as we go. So the first question we'll dive into is, how did you know that you wanted to play college soccer? Marta, will you start with this one?
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about not playing and just going to the U of M. So I grew up in Mankato, like 50,000 people, and I knew for sure I wanted to end up in the Twin Cities. I have a bunch of family up here, and some of my friends were coming here too. So I was stuck between Augsburg and the U. And I knew if I went to Augsburg, I'd play. If I went to the U, I probably wouldn't play. And then March of my senior year came around and I was missing soccer and missing some activity. I played basketball too, but soccer was always my main sport. So Mike, Augsburg's coach, had been in contact with me quite a bit. And eventually I just realized I think I wanted it to be a big part of my life for 4 more years. So he's also a very good recruiter. He's very personable and swayed my opinion to Augsburg rather than the U. So I don't regret it at all.
Thanks, Marta. Abby, will you share next? And then after that, Ashley, will you go? How did you know you wanted to play soccer in college?
Yeah, I was kind of sort of same mindset as Marta. I didn't really think about it until my club coach. I played for Egan back when they were just Egan Soccer Club growing up. So my club coach actually just called the UMD coach up at Duluth. I did not know that. That coach called me and I was like kind of taken aback. I was like, oh, like this could be a real thing, like whatever. That didn't work out, but it kind of got that idea in my head. I transferred out of UMD because that wasn't, it wasn't where I wanted to be. I had a good first year there. I wanted to come back to the cities, and I contacted Augsburg to see about transferring and all that. I reached out to Mike myself, and we met, had a great meeting. He took me around, toured, and, you know, offered me to come on the team as a walk-on, and he kept me around. So that was awesome for me. And that was the path I had to take, and it was perfect for me.
Go ahead, Ash. Thanks, Abby.
So growing up for me, I actually played at BVU when it was Burnsville all my life, and I had pretty much the same team from when I was 12 to 19. So growing up in the club, soccer was more of a social outlet for me. It was playing with all my best friends, and I got to see them twice a week. We didn't all go to the same school. And going into my senior year, I was kind of thinking that, like, going to college, the girls on my team were, like, wanting to join sororities and stuff like that to, like, find ways to make friends. And for me, soccer has been the best way for me to make friends my whole life. So wanting to play in college was, like, knowing that I'd be going to college with 20 new really good friends.
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, so deciding you want to play to keep doing something you love and to make new friends. Love it. There's been a question in the chat about my background. I should have shared as well. So thank you, Emma. I played for 2 years at the University of Florida, and then I transferred to the University of Minnesota, and I played there for 3 years. I tore my knee in college, so I had an experience with injury, and I had an experience at 2 different Division I programs. So I definitely got to know the pros and cons of different areas of the country, different programs. And then I've also been a coach at Augsburg for 4 years now. So I've gotten the D3 experience from the coaching side and really enjoyed that too. Yeah, so we'll have a question later on about the difference between the divisions, and I'll definitely jump in and touch on that question. Next, I'd love to talk about, once you decided you wanted to play college soccer, what the recruiting process was like for you and how you narrowed in on the school you finally wanted to go to. Emily, will you start on that one?
Yeah, mine was kind of complicated and long because I made it complicated and long. I played for Dakota Rev when I was in club, now Salvo, I guess. But I was part of a team that did a ton of college showcases. So I was seen by so many schools, and when you do that, you kind of get a ton of emails from a ton of schools, just because they're kind of automated at that point. And so I did a lot of touring at D1, D2, and D3. And so just figuring out the differences between the two was difficult for me, but basically you get an email from a coach, and that's how I figured out about the school, really. You know, I didn't really look besides at the schools that emailed me. So got an email, talked to the coach. My parents forced me to then start scheduling meetings at those colleges. So you go meet everyone, they walk you around the school, tell you about how great it is, how different it is compared to other schools. And then it's really based off of, I guess, what you like, big, small, what the campus is like. I got lucky because I really liked my coach, and I really liked how pretty the campus was. So it made it easy when I visited Gustavus. I think that answers every part of it.
Yeah, great job, Emily. So Taylor, will you jump in next? Once you knew you wanted to play college soccer, what was the process like for you, and how did you finally choose the school you went to?
Yeah, so for me, it was similar to Emily's. I was playing on a team that would go to like the college showcase tournaments in Michigan. We did a couple in Chicago, and you would get emails from college coaches. But what kind of kickstarted my recruiting process was when a coach came to one of my high school games and talked to me afterwards and initiated conversation. Then similar to Emily's, I started touring campuses and just kind of getting a feel of what I like out of the school. Do I like a big school, a smaller school? Do I want to be more in the city? Do I want kind of like an urban setting? Do I want to be close to home, further away from home? Those are all things I was kind of taking into consideration. And of course, I brought my parents with me to every visit. And kind of the process from there was just staying in communication with coaches. So until I decided what I wanted to do, it was emailing the coaches that I was in contact with when my next games were going to be, when my tournaments were, so they can continue to watch me. And then what kind of sold me on St. Kate's was the flood of love that I got from the team and the coaching staff. So they would come to my state games, my section games. The whole team would kind of be reaching out to me, and we were already developing relationships. And when I got on campus, it sounds silly, but it was kind of just that feeling of like, this is where I want to go. I liked how small it was. I liked that it was kind of in the city, but it didn't feel like you were really in the city. And then the team kind of made me feel welcomed. I knew that I would have a bunch of friends there. So that's how I ended up choosing St. Kate's.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. So I heard Emily talk about coaches seeing her at club events. I heard Taylor talk about coaches seeing her at high school events. Those are definitely both avenues where you can be recruited. Next, we'll jump to Callie. What was your college recruiting experience like, and how did you end up at the school that you're at? I know you had a bit of an interesting journey.
So for me, I guess I didn't start looking at schools until very end of my junior year, beginning of my senior year. I kind of had like the senior slide going, didn't really want to do anything, just kind of thought, if I'm going to play college soccer, I'll figure it out later. Terrible mindset to have. But I didn't know if I wanted to go to a school close to home or far away, like somewhere warm. I looked at a few schools in Florida and a few in Georgia, and then decided that I wanted to stay close to home. And I had a friend reach out to St. Kate's for me, and she was on my club team. I played for Burnsville Fire, and my club coach also reached out to a few different coaches for me, which I'm very grateful for. And from then I went for an overnight at St. Kate's and committed the next day because it was my first overnight, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I really liked the school, liked the atmosphere that the team gave off, and really enjoyed the coach. And then the coach left, and I was kind of like, now what? So I decommitted from St. Kate's because I didn't agree with the new philosophy, I guess. And then I was on the Augsburg soccer field with Ashley one day playing in the summer, and the Augsburg coach came out, Mike, and he thought I was a player on the Augsburg team because me and one of the girls look alike. And he found out I wasn't, and then Ashley gave him my phone number, and then I reached out, or he reached out to me, and I went for a visit in like end of May, so of my senior year, and that's when I committed.
Thanks, Callie. Awesome. Hey, so Callie, I heard you say not a great mindset to have, and then I heard you say you committed the day after an official visit. Can you just touch on, if you could go back and sort of know more about what you know now, what would you change about your recruiting process?
I would definitely just change the mindset that I had going into the recruiting process. I think if you go into it with, if it happens, it'll work out. You might not get the best school for you. I got lucky and I did get the best school for me, but it took until like the very last second to get there, and I would have gone through a lot less stress if I would have just figured it out earlier and kind of gotten things taken care of right away. But at the same time, I think like if the coach at St. Kate's wouldn't have left, I would be in a different place. So it's a weird journey, but I'm glad I was able to go on it.
Thanks, Callie. I like what you said about sort of being proactive with your journey. Emily and Taylor talked about coaches reaching out to them after seeing them play, and that is awesome, and that will happen. And I just want to emphasize that more and more what players need to do is be proactive about their own process, and players need to reach out to coaches. It's becoming more rare that a coach will sort of very strongly reach out to you. And we'll touch more on that later. How do you reach out? What do you say? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? We'll touch on some of that later. Next question. What is the difference between Division I, Division II, and Division III? And how should you think about these things in your decision-making process? Emily, let's go back to you here. You talked about visiting schools in all those different divisions and about talking to coaches in all those different divisions. I'd love to hear what you thought the differences were and why you ended up choosing Division III.
Yeah. On one hand, this is an interesting question for me to answer playing D3. I think that based off of my tours and everything, the biggest difference, in my opinion, is the time you put in. From D1 to D2 to D3, it's the most time, middle, least time, is what I got from those visits, I guess, including travel time, off season. And I knew that I really wanted to have a social life as much as I loved soccer. I wanted the college experience as well. I'm also, one of the biggest things that I ran into when I was, one of my club coaches coached for Concordia St. Paul, and that's where I was really considering going. There are two schools, so he really wanted me to get bigger, and you can't tell based off of the screen, but I'm 5'2". So I would be not very good at sizing up girls, I guess. I play in the middle of the field also, so that was a huge game changer also with my position. And so I knew that I wanted to play right away, and D3 was where I could start freshman year. And so that was also a big factor was just a size difference between the divisions based off of what the insights I really got from those D1 and D2 coaches.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, we talked to a lot of players at Augsburg who, potentially have D1 or D2 offers, but want to start their first year as a freshman, or get significant playing time. That's really important to them, and so that's a major factor in why they choose D3. Abby, can you jump on this question next? You spent some time at Duluth, which I believe is a D2 school.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I was able to see the Duluth girls train. I never trained with them. Again, it didn't work out, but I think it is a lot of the commitment or like what Emily said, the time and the commitment you're willing to put in. Again, your playing times as you go D3, D2, D1, depending on who you are, the playing time may decrease as you go up the scale. It just kind of depends, but it's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of time. And I think the competition increases as you go up as well. Just from what I observed, the teams, I don't know if the sizes change. There seem to be a lot more girls at the D2 level. Their sideline bench looked bigger than Augsburg's. I'm not sure the details on that. So just depends on the playing time you want and how much time and commitment you want to put into it.
Thanks, Abby. Ash, will you touch on this next? I know you've played on summer teams with a lot of players who played in different divisions. It'd be great to hear your experience. And if you can throw into what you know about the scholarships at each level, that'd be great. Hey, Ash, you just got to unmute yourself real quick.
Okay. So for scholarships, obviously there's no athletic scholarships at the D3 level. I don't think there's very many people that play at the D3 level without getting some sort of academic scholarship, though. So there's a lot of scholarships you can still get to go to school. For D2 and D1, I know that there's athletic scholarships, but a lot of the time they're not full ride scholarships. A lot of the time they'll be like a partial part of your tuition, or maybe it could be full, but very common for the coach to want to have a bigger roster and kind of split the scholarships up that they are given. But so I've had a lot of experience playing with Bemidji in the summers. I play with almost their whole starting varsity team in a summer league, and they're super fun to play with, but it is really different. I think across divisions, as you get higher, it does get a little more physical as well. So the physical demands of playing at a D1 or D2 level, and Emily kind of touched on it, that they are usually going to recruit larger girls, taller girls. But for D3, I don't think that the best D3 team would have troubles playing a D2 or a D1 school if they're a smaller school. It's not really D3 is the worst teams, D1 is the best teams. There's a really wide range. There's small D1 schools, there's big D2 schools. So it kind of just depends where you're going. There's a lot of variation between level in divisions themselves. So, and then playing with girls from the U of M, playing with Gopher players was super fun for me. And I would say more than Division 2 or Division 3, if you're a Division 1 player, your communication is kind of a little more complex. So the way you're talking on the field can get more towards what a professional level would look like. And D3 and D2 are a little more relaxed on stuff like that.
Thanks, Ash. Marta, last I'd like to invite you to jump in on this one. I know you were looking at the U of M and possibly being a walk-on there or playing on the club team there. Can you just touch on your experience with the differences in the divisions?
Yeah, so I had talked, when I was playing club, I had talked to an assistant coach at the U thinking about walking on. And at the same time, I was talking to Mike at Augsburg and trying to basically weigh the difference if I were to play D1 or D3. And Mike had told me I'd basically be starting immediately as a freshman, which at the U that wouldn't be the case. I'd probably have to work my way up after a few years, likely. And I knew, like, myself personally, I'm not a super physical player. I don't like to play that way. I've never liked that. I like doing more of the cheeky kind of fun parts of the game. So the physical aspect I knew wasn't really for me. And I agree with Ash. I think that D3 is a better level for that. D1, you need to be built and more ready for that. And I think that's definitely something people get used to as you get into the program too. So it shouldn't be something that you're nervous about going into, but it is just a different level, I'd say.
Thanks, Marta. I'll just add from my experience. So like I said, I played at 2 Division I programs and then have been a coach at a Division III program. I think the spring season is a big difference. So at Division I, you get, you know, I don't know the exact number of months, but it's, 2 to 3 months of 20 hours a week in the spring season where you're training together as a team. And at Division III, it changes based upon the rules of each conference. But the MIAC, for example, gets 30 to 32 hours of off-season practices. So that ends up being about 15, 16 practices in the spring. So it's a very different off-season commitment when you're there in person with your coaches. But Division III players train all the time on their own without coaches in the spring. So they'll lift in the mornings on their own. They'll get together and play futsal or play, in a turf dome together on their own. And so I think a big difference that I have observed is that Division III players have to be a lot more sort of intrinsically self-motivated in the off season, whereas Division I players get that team environment that provides sort of a social motivation to show up and keep doing it. D2, I don't know the specifics on, but my guess is that it lays somewhere in the middle, potentially a little more off-season time than Division III. Taylor, do you know the info on that one?
Yeah, it's pretty similar in regards to contact and what they're allowed to do in the off season. We just had a kind of a Q&A with a couple college coaches, and Bemidji was there and Duluth was there. And it's similar. I think the difference might be hours, like how many they're allowed to. So they still train more than we would as a Division III school. But I don't think it's as extensive as a Division I school potentially in the spring season.
Thanks, Taylor. And then the last point I want to make is when I was going through the college recruiting process in high school, I love soccer. I love pushing myself, and I wanted to play at the highest level that I could. And so I was looking at what are the top Division I programs that play a style that I like, that would take me on their team. I really wanted to be at a top level program, and I really wanted to have a challenging environment. And to a certain extent, I was probably interested in the status of going to a big school and a high level program. And when I look back, and the advice that I give young players now is that the fit matters way more than the level. The fit matters way more than the status. And that you can have a fantastic experience at any level, even if you're a highly competitive player who wants a top-notch program. You can find that at any level. And winning a championship at Division III feels just as good as winning a championship at Division I. There's a way to fuel that sort of competitive spirit no matter where you end up. And I think for me, when I look back, I'm, as someone who really loves school and academics, and, someone who was interested in studying abroad, I loved my Division I experience, and I think I would have found a really happy home at some D3 schools as well. So I really encourage a lot of players to open what the schools that they're looking at beyond certain levels, beyond certain divisions, and just really explore what is out there. Okay, next question. So once you're interested in a school, you're on campus, you're visiting a coach, you're meeting with some of the current players on the team, what would be good questions to ask the coach, and what would be good questions to ask the players? Callie, let's start with you. What would be good questions to ask the players when you're meeting them on campus? Oh, Callie, you got to unmute also.
I think the best questions to ask the players are about your interests and like about school. So if there's anybody on the team who has the same major as you or is interested in the same thing that you're interested in, just kind of asking them what their workload is like for soccer and school, what the classes are like, if you can sit in on any of the classes. And if no one does have the same interest as you major-wise, even just trying to figure out who you can talk to in that department. So like for me, there was no one on the team at the time who was an elementary education major. So I went and talked to one of the education professors, so I was able to get input from them. Another thing I would ask is just how trainings go, what the team is like, what do you guys do outside of soccer? Do you all hang out together? Things like that.
Thanks, Callie. Taylor, will you jump in next? What are good questions to ask the coaches when you meet with them on campus?
Yeah, I think some great questions that I would encourage players to ask the coaching staff is what are program values? So what does the program believe in? What do they support, kind of what do they stand for, to get to know them a little bit more. If you're looking to, depending on what kind of experience you want, I think asking, like one of our questions in the chat is about studying abroad. I would ask about opportunities like that. So how does education play into being a student athlete? What might a school schedule look like on top of a fall soccer season? And if you are interested in studying abroad, when you could do that or if you could do that. And then finally, I would just ask, you know, what they're looking for in a player. I think a lot of college coaches are looking for different things at different times. And so if you're looking to maybe find a program that you're really interested in, and you're kind of in the middle of a recruiting process, asking them what they're looking for in a student athlete. So what kind of person do they look to recruit? You know, are they positive? Are they humbled? Are they a hard worker? Or maybe they have a great work ethic. And then finally, just kind of a little bit more detail about what they're looking for on the field. Those would be some of the questions that I would encourage athletes to ask when they have meetings with staff.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, that's a great question in the chat. Definitely something to ask coaches about. It depends on the level, how easy it is to study abroad, and it also might depend on the coach. One more thing I'd say is it'd be great to ask the players that you're meeting with what the coaches really like. So coaches are going to put their best faces on when they're with you on a recruiting visit. And players are with coaches, you know, every day throughout the whole year, after they win a big game, after they lose a big game. And it's nice to hear from players what their real experience is like with coaches and teammates. Marta, will you touch on this awesome question from Claire about studying abroad since you did it?
Yeah, for sure. So I studied abroad my spring semester of my junior year. I think if it was your senior year, obviously it wouldn't affect you because you play in the fall. So you could do that. A lot of people don't, just because it's their last semester being at that school. Junior year, it was pretty seamless and easy for me because I was at a point where I had a lot of my elective classes done, but I still had a couple credits I could finish up and do abroad. And the way it transferred for school was it all just fit into me graduating on time in the 4 years. For soccer, I obviously missed a lot of the off season, so I left just after the new year and came back in May. And so it's a good chunk of time to be away from your team, but I fortunately did it with 2 other of my teammates. So we kind of were able to do workouts together and things like that. If people who don't go together though as a team, or with other teammates or friends that they already know, you can meet a lot of other people that either also play sports or are interested in some type of fitness. So it's definitely possible to keep yourself into the game. Also, studying abroad in Spain was really cool because it's a huge soccer culture. So I was definitely around it and playing not quite as much as I would here, but there's still options for sure. And then you basically just have to come back and in the summer know that you need to get fit and ready for season come August. So I think as long as you have that in the back of your mind and your mindsets for that, it's easy to do.
Thanks, Marta. Panelists, did anybody else study abroad? Give me a raised hand if you did. Abby, will you touch on that?
Yes, I will. I studied abroad over the J term. We didn't really have a J term at Augsburg, but J term is over winter break. So I went to El Salvador over that time. I went for like 2 weeks. So it was just a quick chunk of time, but it fit perfectly over that winter break. And it worked out well for me.
Thanks, Abby. I'll add, I tried to study abroad. I looked into a program in Indonesia. It was going to be a May term, so it had been gone for a month. And then I talked to my college coaches about it. And they didn't flat out say no. They were just kind of like, I don't think that'd be a good idea. So I ended up not going. So Division I, if you miss some of that time to be able to train and prepare in the summer, it is potentially more of a challenge to be ready and fit for preseason, and fitness was already a challenge for me, and so missing a month of training would have made it really hard to be able to pass my fitness test at the beginning of the season. Next question that I get a lot from players interested in Augsburg, and especially from parents also, how am I going to balance my schoolwork with college soccer? So Emily, would you touch on that one? And then after she's done, Ashley, would you jump in?
Yeah, for sure. In high school, I was always someone who wasn't the greatest student. I had decent grades, all just average grades. School didn't come that hard to me. It didn't come that easy to me. Sports was always something that really kept me on a schedule and I did homework at this time. I did soccer, lacrosse, or basketball at this time. So I was always so busy, and that's how I was just able to stay more productive. So when I got to college, it was the same thing. I had school during the day, go straight to practice, and then I would do homework at night. So it really kept me more organized, and maybe that's just me. But it's also at Gustavus, and I'm sure a lot of different schools, you need a certain grade point average to be able to play. I think it was around 2.5 maybe. I might have just made that up. But it was a certain grade point average. Laughing at Taylor laughing at me. A certain grade point average to be able to play, you needed to keep it to be an eligible athlete. So that kind of is pressure enough to keep your grades at a decent level, I guess. And then another thing at Gustavus, we had, I don't know how it is at other schools, but we had mandatory study hall when you were freshmen. So your first full semester, you had to have study hall every Wednesday night. So all the freshmen were forced to sit in a classroom, and it was 2 hours where you had set aside to do your homework. So that kind of set us into the first semester of school and getting used to, we have practice this time, Wednesday, we have to do all of our homework. So you didn't really have the opportunity to slack off, and that was during the season and the off season. And then second semester you don't, but if you have under a certain amount of grade point average, then you're back in study hall. So it's just another accountability partner. I'd be interested to know if it was the same at other schools, but that's how Gustavus, I guess, kept me on track.
For me in high school, I never had any issues with school. And then when I got to college, it was kind of a difficult transition. But for me, my grades were always better in the fall semester than the spring semester. So my grades were always better the semester that I was in soccer. Even though I had less time with all the practices and games, the less time I had kind of made me have to use it better. So me thinking I'm done with class at 3 and I have practice at 7 p.m. tonight, I only have in between those to finish all my stuff that's due tonight, was helpful for me, because once I got to the spring, I felt like having more time made me do less, made me like less motivated to do it. And then just your coaches motivate you to get better grades. Like I'm sure Jen and Taylor have known that my grades have gotten alerts. So you can get an alert as a coach that's like, your player is doing like really badly in this class right now, they need to step it up. And then your coach will meet with you, and it's not like you need to get your grades better, you're off the team. It's like, how can I help you get better? How can we make a plan? So it's kind of like having an extra advisor when you have a coach in college, of someone being like, okay, we can set out a schedule. I can get someone in the team that's the same major as you to help you out. And then like Em was saying with the study halls, we have that at Augsburg too. I'm pretty sure most colleges will have it for their team because it's a lot of team bonding too. So just being around your team for an hour when you're all supposed to be doing homework is helpful, especially when you have people on the team that are the same major as you. Because for me, I came in my freshman year and did a math major, and there was a senior on the team that was a math major, and she told me every teacher to take. She's like, I'll give you like all my old textbooks, and having that is really helpful. So I would say it's easy to organize your time because you have a lot of people that want you to be organizing it, especially in season, and there's a lot of outlets of people that'll help you.
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, I'll echo what they're saying and just add that we keep the data on what our team GPA is in the fall versus the spring at Augsburg. And it is always higher in the fall when they know that they have certain hours when they have to get their homework done. And the players are really good about time management and really good about reinforcing with each other time management skills. And last but not least, it's really nice to have that built-in social network that can help tutor you. So, sometimes there's a senior who's really good at chem and a first year who's struggling in Chem 101, and they can sit down and go over the material together. Okay, we had a great question come in from Avery. What grade would you suggest to start looking at schools? Taylor, can you tackle that one? As a college coach, what age are you seeing players come into your office for the Division III level?
Yeah, because I'm fairly new to college coaching, just in talking to Mike, I think that this is expanding. It's getting earlier. We have players that are reaching out earlier or asking to tour campus as sophomores in high school for Division III, which, speaking from our program, and I think it's pretty mutual across the conference, there's no timeline on committing when it comes to Division III. I mean, a coach might encourage you to make a decision by a certain time, or you as a player might have a certain time that you want to commit. But for Division III, for at least Augsburg, we try and encourage players to take all the time they need and tour other campuses and other schools and make their decision then. I think that depends on what division you want to look at or what you're interested in. The best advice that I could give to kind of a general audience of players is, if you are very interested in playing college soccer and you know that, whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, junior, or senior, be active and advocate. Reach out to coaches of all divisions, and they will give you feedback based on watching you play or what they're looking for or what they want. I think, Jen, you might know more about Division I and when they start recruiting. But for Division III, when I go out and recruit specifically, I think sophomores is kind of the youngest that we're looking at maybe when it comes to adding to our recruiting pool. Otherwise, we stay in pretty constant communication with juniors and seniors. I think you can maybe speak more on that from a Division I experience, or some of our panelists can talk about when they were recruited as D2 athletes potentially.
Yeah, I'll jump in, and I want to highlight what Greg just added to the chat, that some D3 institutions, in particular ones that are really high level academically, have early admission and early decision policies. That means in your senior year, you have to admit by, say, November, as opposed to the later admissions that can sometimes take place in, January, February, or some schools have rolling admissions. So if you decide that you want to play college soccer for a program your senior year, and you decide you want to play for them December, January, but they're a school that had an early decision deadline in November, now that school is not possible for you. So knowing each school's admission policies is really, really important. And I would recommend, no matter what division you want to play, that you start thinking about it, talking to coaches, and looking pretty seriously before your senior year. For Division III, we typically see juniors in our office, but as Taylor said, that's sliding earlier and earlier. Sophomores are starting to enter sort of the recruiting process in a more serious way. And the Division I level, if you are getting into the college recruiting process your junior year, you are very late, to the point where you might not be able to get onto the team that you're interested in. Division I schools recruit first years, freshmen and sophomores in high school very heavily. So if you go to a University of Minnesota ID camp, there'll be, eighth graders and freshmen there. Yeah, and Greg's added another question to this chat. How will COVID affect recruiting for the 2021 class? And I want to throw this back to Taylor. What are you doing at Augsburg right now, and how can players still reach out to programs?
Yeah, so to add a little bit to that, when it comes to our rules, we can have on-campus communication with sophomores and above. So if we are off campus and you are a sophomore and we're at a recruiting event, we're not necessarily allowed to come talk to you until after you graduate your sophomore year. Other than that, if you're a sophomore or freshman, if you're trying to talk to a Division III coach outside of their campus, they're not allowed to physically speak to you. They might just tell you to send them an email. But in regards to recruiting right now for the 2021 class, there's a few things that are going on. I know one of our coaches just shared an awesome recruiting online opportunity that we could potentially get that link out. For us at Augsburg, what we're doing is we are looking at NCAA portals. We're looking at online recruiting sites that players can sign up for. I'm not sure if any of our panelists created one of those when they were looking to be seen by college coaches, but there are recruiting opportunities online where you can create a profile for yourself. You can tell a little bit about yourself, what position you play, what club you play for, and if you have film of yourself playing, you can add that so coaches can actively watch you even if they're not physically at a game. Right now, what we're doing is we are reaching out to players that are in our recruiting system and anybody that reaches out to us and asking to do an online virtual tour. So we are meeting, myself and Mike, the head coach, are meeting with players on Zoom, and we were showing them a virtual tour of campus and talking through the new facilities that we have and what kind of happens in those buildings. And then we're having kind of staff time. So we talk about our program for those players and involve some of our current Augies, our current athletes on there, into a breakout session where they can then talk to players and get a feel of what it would be like to be an Augsburg athlete. I'm not entirely sure what some other coaches are doing in schools. It's kind of been a topic of conversation right now because we're trying to navigate our recruiting process online as well. But that's specifically what Augsburg is doing. Obviously, we're not going to physically be able to come watch you right now on a field. We can't watch tournaments since they're not happening, and we can't watch club soccer, but that's kind of how we're navigating the change of recruiting.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, I'll just say that unfortunately, this is going to affect recruiting because we might not be able to play games for the foreseeable future for the next couple of months. And so if coaches can't see you, you have to find a way to see coaches, right? So you have to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm interested. How are you recruiting still? Like, how is your school, how is your program in particular adjusting for COVID? And how can I get, my name seen by you? How can I be considered for your program? I want to get in this other awesome question from Claire. How did you maintain a balanced diet in college with soccer? Marta, will you talk about that one?
Yeah, so depending on the level that you're at, like D1, I think they do specific meal plans or a lot more prepping than I think like D2 and D3 schools would. But in college, like your first year, you have a meal plan in the cafeteria or wherever your dorm is. And Augsburg has tons of healthy options. It's not always my favorite food, but at least it's still healthy options for you to eat. Once you start living on your own, it becomes a little harder. So if you have roommates or your sophomore, junior, senior years out of school, or off of campus, if you decide to live that way, sometimes it can be harder. So it's important to maybe ask your coaches for guidance, or there's sometimes nutritionists that talk to the teams as well, which help give you at least like good protein and carb foods for you to eat for sure. So
Thanks, Marta. Callie, will you touch on nutrition in season and what is sort of provided by the program and how you make sure you get quality nutrition on game day in particular?
Yeah, so our program provides a lot of our food for game days, and like if we have a late practice and the calf is closed, they'll order like Jimmy John's, like healthy things, or on game days we have a bag of like bananas and oranges and things like that to eat at halftime and before the game so that you have energy when you're playing. But I think the biggest thing for like nutrition during season and nutrition off season is like you need to eat a lot more during season than you do in off season because you're not burning as many calories. So just being aware of that, so you're not, eating the same amount and not burning it all off. Just being aware of what you're eating, kind of having that mindset of, okay, I'm not in season right now. What can I eat? What can I do? Things like that.
Thanks, Callie. All right, we've got 2 minutes until 7. I want to touch on 2 more questions, so we might go a few minutes over, but I think we've gotten a lot of really great info from our awesome coaches so far, so I hope you stay tuned with us. Taylor, will you touch on what a player should put in their email to a coach? Like when they're first emailing a college coach, what should they make sure they have in there?
Yeah, so we've seen a variety of emails. If you're just emailing a coach for the first time, tell us a little bit about you. So your name, what year you are in at school, maybe what club you play for. I've often seen players talk about their GPA or if they know what they want to major in, what they're interested in, to see if we actually have that at our school if they haven't done that research already. I always enjoy when a recruit makes it specific to Augsburg. So if they reach out to our school and they're like, hey, we saw you had a great game against Gustavus last week, or we saw that you guys are in the MIAC championship, or just kind of a fun fact about Augsburg, it shows they're a little bit more interested and dedicated to knowing more about our program specifically. And then if it's in season or if they know they have games coming up, including their schedule in that email. So this is when I'm going to be playing next with my team. I'd love for you to come watch, depending on what year they are, if they want to come to our campus. Oftentimes we want to see them play before we have them on campus, but definitely tell us a little bit about you, and then provide us with information so that way we can kind of come see you and make it a point to see you.
Thanks, Taylor. I want to emphasize that it's important to add your graduation year. We need to know what class you're in, because if our recruiting class is full for next year, but we're really looking for recruits for the year after that, that info is really helpful for us. And then I want to emphasize what Taylor said about adding something about the school in particular. If you can enter some info about the major you're interested in at that school, why the soccer program speaks to you. Now I know you've done your homework and you're actually interested in us. You've actually invested in us. So I'm more willing to take the time to invest in you. When I get emails that just say, dear coach, and don't have any specifics about our school, I know that it's probably a blanket email that went out to a lot of people. And every so often we get emails that say, not even dear Coach Smith, and my name is not Coach Smith, right? So make sure you're getting the coach's name correct. It's a dead giveaway that you are mass emailing if you get the coach's name wrong. Okay, last question that I want to end on is, are you glad that you played college soccer? And how did it change you? Like, did it help you grow? And if so, how? And we'll go to everybody on this one. So take us home with how college soccer has impacted you as a person. Emily, go ahead.
I would say a big fat yes. It was probably the best decision of my entire life, honestly, up to this point. It taught me the value of hard work, organization, keeping myself on track, friendship. You get 30 automatic friends. Oh shoot, there was one point that I really wanted to make in this and now I forget. But yes, play college soccer if you are interested, if you're at all hesitant, because it's the best ever.
Thanks, Emily. If you remember that great point you were going to make, just raise your hand and we'll go back to you.
Okay.
All right, Abby, are you glad that you played college soccer, and how has it changed you?
Yeah, I think it was the best experience of my life. I'm extremely grateful every day that I had that experience. I'm still friends with my, 2025 teammates from years ago. I take a lot of the values that I learned from college soccer and I do apply them into my real life job today. And I'm a really competitive person, so it's kind of set my mindset to it's just made my work ethic even better, even into my day-to-day experiences. I would definitely do it over and over again. I still think back every day, man, I killed to be in college again. I wish I was hanging out with my girls. Having that support system is huge. Finding your wolf pack, even through college soccer, that's what that was. I had 25 to 30 people supporting me and pushing me every day to be better. And so yeah, that's just brought into my regular life right now, finding those support systems and going from there. I would do it over and over again. Highly encourage it.
Thanks, Abby. Emily, I see your hand raised. Do you remember?
Yes, Abby kind of touched on it. I was going to touch on how much it transfers to real world working. I can just tell the people who were in sports and who weren't. I'm in sales specifically. So it's super beneficial. It's so nice to be able to talk about in interviews. It was my go-to for everything because it just gives you such real world experiences for the working world. That was it.
I see Abby nodding along, so I'm sure she's talked about it in interviews as well. Ashley, will you go next?
Yeah, for me, I had so much fun playing college soccer. And I think a lot of times people might play high school soccer or play club soccer towards the end of their high school career, and they're on a team that is really toxic or they have a bad coach, and that can kind of make you not want to play college and not want to keep doing it. But I think going into a school where you've met the team and you've met the coach and you like both of them, it brings back your love for the game. So knowing that you get to pick where you're going, you get to choose your own path, and it's kind of just a really fun ride to go on. You expect something to happen when you go and something completely different might happen, and it's still super fun. And if you don't like your experience, you can go to a different school. There's options for you. So I think it really opens up a lot for your college life and is a lot of fun.
Thanks, Ash. I'll add that obviously none of our BVU players have coaches that make soccer not fun right now because they have all of you. Marta, will you go next?
Yeah. For me, I think the biggest piece, heck yeah, you should play college soccer. You find the greatest connections that you're going to have for life. So I still talk to my coach frequently. And a lot of the girls that I played with, I still talk to every single day. It also gets you connected to coaching or people in the community like BVU. I never thought I would be a coach until I decided I needed a summer job. And Holker said, hey, why don't you take a U9 team? And so that helped me get connected to coaching, which I've now been doing for 6 years. And then it also opened doors for me in a career with some parents who I was very blessed to have for 3 or 4 years. So the coaching connections, I think, is one of the biggest pieces, and it just helps you navigate ways through life. So even it's not just the soccer piece of it, it's the people that you meet that really help you and support you and continue to do it even after you graduate. So that piece is huge.
Thanks, Marta. Taylor, will you go next?
Yeah, I think we're all kind of hitting on the same thing of how much playing a sport in general, but in college really provides you with when it comes to the professional life, building relationships, networking. I learned so much from my team on like how to collaborate, how to, put others before myself, how to lead, how to just kind of fight for something bigger than me or myself in the moment. But the biggest part was the relationships for me as well. It was like having, another 25 best friends that, would do anything for you. Like you're with them 24/7, eating breakfast and going to training and weightlifting and lounging during preseason and complaining about things together. But those are lifelong relationships. And it's similar to my coach. It was like having like a soccer dad who would fight for me and give me opportunities and provide me with networking that led me to Greg and then led me here at BVU. So it's bigger than just the friendships that you build. It's like a network that's just striving to help you be successful on and off the field. And it's a community that I wouldn't take for granted.
Thanks so much, Taylor. All right, Callie, next.
So basically what everybody else said. And then for me, soccer has been such a stress reliever in a way that I can like cleanse myself almost, like kind of start fresh after I get back from practice. Like I feel brand new. I think that if I was in college and I didn't have that outlet, I wouldn't know where else to find it. So I agree with what everyone else said, and then I'll add that.
Thank you, Callie. I'll share my experience too really quickly. I'm so glad I played college soccer, and I echo everything the other awesome panelists were saying. And I'll add that for me, I think it gave me a deeply rooted sense of confidence that I can bounce back from challenges. Tearing my knee up pretty bad and being out for a year and having to go through that process, and also I went into college soccer really wanting to get playing time and make an impact on the field, and in the challenge of, I was a role player who came off the bench, and embracing that new role and finding a way to really love it and to really show up for my teammates, and being able to adapt in that way made me really, I think, gain a new sense of confidence and belief in myself. Well, so that's the end. We've gone about an hour and 10 minutes. If you have additional questions, please reach out to us. Every person on this panel is here because they care about you and because they really want to help you. So reach out to your coach, reach out to any coach you saw on this panel, and we can keep in touch about this process. And especially as it evolves with the COVID situation, lean on us. If you're not sure what to do, if you're not sure how to reach out or how to start your process, we're here to guide you. And last but not least, we're going to put together some resources, a template for how to put together an email to a college coach, and a quick document to write up the differences between the divisions. And we will email that out to all of you attendees, and then also to all of the teams U15 plus. So thank you so much for being here. We've really enjoyed this time with you, and I hope you're all doing well at home. I hope that you and your families are safe. Have a good night.